Continuity. This was a huge word when you were looking at who FAMU was going to pick for the new head football coach. And 5 months into the James Colzie era, I'm here to tell you what I told you 5 months ago. Continuity is a myth. Oh, yeah. It's locked on HBCU. Play my music.
You are Locked On HBCU, your daily podcast covering HBCU sports. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's going on, family? Welcome back to another episode of the Locked On HBCU podcast, your number one daily one-stop shop for everything HBCU athletics, Monday through Friday, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And I, of course, am Darian Gray, a.k.a. the Mouth of the South, Texas Southern alum and former TSU Herald Sports editor and current contributing writer at USA Today's Saints Wire. Thank you for going on this journey with me. Make a Locked On HBCU your first listen of the day every day. And remember, just because the mic cuts off does not mean that the journey is over. It just means it's time to follow me on Twitter at South Exclusives. Starts with an S and ends with an S. Today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONCollege to get $20 off your first purchase. We'll wrap up today's episode with a little Feature Friday looking at Norfolk State's 2024 Hall of Fame class. I think that this is headlined by the 2012 men's basketball team and a bunch of other players and personnel who were the first ever in school history. Prior to that, we'll look at the Paris Olympics and what HBCU representation in what countries will we see those HBCU representatives competing for. Now, we kick off today's episode with something that I've really been wanting to get off of my chest for a while, and that's a message to FAMU, to Rattler Nation, when looking at the state of the team today as opposed to where it was 5-6 months ago. Continuity is a myth. I want to get a couple of disclaimers out there first, right? Number one, why did this come up to me? I was looking at an article about the amount of players who had transferred out of FAMU. I was thinking about, as we go into football season, what does FAMU look like today as opposed to what did they look like last season, right? They are your defending champions. These are things that we should be looking at. These are conversation points that we would have had even if Willie Simmons was here. But Willie Simmons isn't here. So now this same talking point gets viewed from a different lens. And I'm here to tell you continuity is a myth. Let's get some more disclaimers out there. This is not a why'd you hire James Colzie topic. This is not a FAMU's going to be bad topic. You have to separate those thought processes. If you and I think there are some fans who did this, if you are one of the fans who kind of made success in 2024 synonymous with continuity in the coaching staff and picking James Colzie, or I can't remember who the other option was, but basically hiring in-house and being successful in 2024, for these next 8 to 10 minutes, I ask you to detach yourself from this thought process because it is not mine. And you won't be able to hear me if you don't detach the idea that continuity immediately resulted in success. Okay, we've got enough disclaimers out there. Let's get to the actual nitty-gritty of this topic and why I think it's so interesting. The word continuity, when I say continuity, this is not my terminology. These are things I heard from Rattler Nation, and I heard them from Rattler Nation often. In the entirety through the coaching search, I kept hearing, you got to, Billy Roll. That's the other guy I couldn't remember at the moment. You got to pick Billy Roll. You got to pick James Colzie. This is the continuity hire. If you want to win next year, you need continuity. I always pushed back on that, and I still push back on that. And as we're 5 months into the James Colzie era, and I'm looking at the roster, I'm here to tell you continuity is a myth. Now, the difference between when I say this now and when I said this 5 months ago is I was kind of just predicting, so to speak. If you want to put quotes, air quotes on it, I do. But now I actually have some real tangible proof to back up why continuity is a myth for FAMU. I already think it's a myth in general. I don't think you can really achieve that in college football. But we'll get to that at the end of the show because right now I want to stay very specific to the Rattlers, okay? FAMU was never going to have the same team once Willie Simmons left. First off, you had graduations. Let's just get that out the way. You had graduations that were going to take your team in a completely different direction, no matter if Simmons had left or stayed. Jeremy Musa, He didn't leave because of Simmons. He left because he graduated. Isaiah Major, he didn't leave because of Simmons. He left because he graduated. Both of those men tried to test their luck at professional football. And Willie Simmons left himself. So once you incorporate Musa, Major, and Simmons all leaving, you lost the leader of your offense, you lost the leader of your defense, and you lost the leader of your team as far as coaching staff wise. Continuity was out the window once those three people left, and two of them were already going to leave no matter what. Continuity was never achievable for FAMU. It never was. And listen, once again, I don't know if that means that FAMU isn't going to be successful this year. They brought in a bunch of people in the transfer portal. They brought in a bunch of recruits. They were very active to try to get experienced players to come in here and strike while the iron is hot. I respect that move. I think it was the right move to be that aggressive in that way because you want to try to get something immediately. The pressure is kind of on James Colzie to succeed immediately because that was the conversation around him the entire time. The entire time it was, you get James Colzie, you will win next year because we're this and we're that. So now if you get the coach who's already been here, we're going to have the same success that we had the year prior. I don't think it works that way. I'm just going to be honest with you. I don't think that it works that way at all. But the reason I hammer home on this is because continuity was the driving force for fans when speaking. So I'm speaking to the fans. I do not think, or maybe I don't hope, that FAMU made this decision solely based on this idea of continuity, right? And you know what? You may feel like I'm being unfair. You may tell me those players are going to graduate no matter what. You're using a flawed piece of logic. Okay, that's fine. Let's look at the transfer portal because that's what really people are talking about. Players flocking in the transfer portal and leaving away. And going away. Let's look at all the people who left since James Colzie was hired. This is not people who entered the portal and left before they can announce who the coach was. All what, 1, 2, 3, 4 of these players that I'm about to name on the defensive side are all players who entered and left the portal after James Colzie was hired. Johnny Chaney to Colorado in May. Gentle Hunt to Illinois in May. Sharif Say to UCLA in May. Anthony Dunn to Toledo in May. Yes, Hunt entered the transfer portal prior to Colzie being hired, but he came back and then he entered the portal again. All 4 of these players are big-time players for you, and they all entered and left in the portal after James Colzie was hired. I don't say this to taunt you. I just look at who FAMU is today versus who they were 5-6 months ago, and I say, wow, this is a drastically different team. But I don't get surprised when I see that this is a drastically different team. What I see is a team that lost their head coach. Continuity is a myth, and it's not you weren't able to achieve continuity. It's just not really true. See, here's the thing. The reason I say myth and not it wasn't achieved is because I don't know if you can achieve it anywhere in college football. In the day and age of the transfer portal, there's too many opportunities specifically for an FCS team with good talent. Johnny Chaney went to Colorado. Gentle Hunt went to Illinois. Sharif Say went to UCLA. Anthony Dunn went to Toledo, and Anthony Dunn really didn't have much time to really develop. He's going to Toledo raw. These are all players who are going FBS. That temptation was large. That temptation would have got probably at least one of them, even if Willie Simmons was there. This temptation, the idea of the transfer portal means that I can go anywhere, anytime. And when my coach leaves, because that's what continuity is. You don't say everybody, we just rolled over the same team. We don't really argue that. That's not continuity. This is a conversation that only exists when a coach leaves and we're trying to hire in-house. That's the framework of this conversation. Yes, you can roll over team to team with the same head coach. That happens. But let's not try to, let's not try to twist up the words here to make them fit. We know what continuity means when we're talking sports, and that's what this means. Anytime a coach leaves, I just think that the transfer portal is too enticing. I think that those doors open up too wide. You see too much temptation. And then when you're an FCS team, the doors are even wider, man. I think people would have called Johnny Chaney and Gentle Hunt no matter what. I think Anthony Dunn maybe would have stayed a year. But the year after, he has such talent. He's so raw. He has such a great prototypical build. They would have came looking for Johnny Chaney, for Anthony Dunn. Now, Kareem Burke, who ended up staying within the SWAC, you probably would have kept him with Willie Simmons. I feel confident that he wouldn't have left. But the moral of the story is, whether it be graduation, whether it be transfer portal, the idea that you were going to lose Willie Simmons and keep the same team just because you hired within the house, I don't think is real. Did the time frame that it took you to get this hire done affect some things? Maybe. But I'm looking at Chaney, Hunt, Say, Dunn. I'm looking at all of these players who entered the portal after the spring. Just saying, I think Chaney may have entered before. I'm not sure. That's the one I'm the least confident of. But Hunt, Say, and Dunn, they all entered the portal in April. They all entered the portal in April. And I feel like Chaney did the same. I can't really blame the timeline of the hire there either. Now, I'll end this with the same little disclaimer I started it with. This ain't saying that James Colzie is the wrong hire. If continuity was the driving force, and you're not looking at just who's the best coach, then I think you might have got the right hire for the wrong reasons. Some people get into relationships for the wrong reason. They end up getting married. So sometimes you can get into something good for the wrong reasons. So this is not an insult to James Colzie. I wish him the best of luck in every game that he doesn't play Texas Southern. But then again, I don't think we're going to be that great. So best of luck to you there too. This is not to say that FAMU is going to be bad. They brought in a lot of talent to replace the talent that they lost. So let's not get those two things confused. This is all about the idea of continuity. That was the biggest theme of FAMU's head coaching search in 2024. I don't like that it was. I hope that it wasn't for those decision makers, because to me, no matter where you are, just so happens to be FAMU, continuity is a myth. Now, as we push forward, one thing that is not mythical, that is the 2024 Paris Olympics. I will not be trying any French today, but maybe as we get closer to the day, I'll actually try to bust out a little bit of something. That being said, we'll look at the HBCU representation with current and former players, if we have any, in the 2024 Paris Olympics as we continue with Locked On HBCU. Today's episode is brought to you by eBay Motors, and eBay Motors is the best place to take care of your ride or die. Because, listen, you ever had something wrong with your alternator? You ever had just a piece that you had to get, and you go to the mechanic, they charge you an arm and a leg for it? Excuse me. You ever have you charge an arm and a leg, and you're like, man, I know it shouldn't be this expensive. That's fine. Next time, just go to eBay Motors. Take a little bit of patience. Go to eBay Motors. Get that part for you. Take it to them and just have them charged for the labor, because you're going to get the high quality that eBay Motors always delivers, while also getting a very favorable price that they're going to try to, they're going to try to charge you an arm, leg, kneecap, elbow, everything in between. You go ahead and go to eBay Motors. You can take care of your car, your ride or die for a much lesser price with a high quality on the side. So go to ebaymotors.com. That is ebaymotors.com. Get one of the 120 million parts that is guaranteed to fit for your car. That's ebaymotors.com. Let's ride. As we continue rolling on today's episode of Locked On HBCU, I appreciate you for making this your first listen of the day, every day for your second listen. Make sure you're checking out Locked On Sports Today. It's the first of its kind, 24/7, all day, every day sports network on YouTube. I understand you want to get the biggest stories, so you may go to an ESPN, you may go to a Fox Sports, whatever that may be for you. But instead of going to check out national pundits, how about you go look at the local experts? They can give you the ins and outs that the national guys simply cannot do. So go ahead and go to Locked On Sports Today. Go to Locked On Sports Today and subscribe. Now, the Paris Olympics are around the corner. You're going to be seeing them at the end of the month. And I want to go over the athletes that were able to make it, because we have HBCU representation in 3 different countries. Now, current, unfortunately not. All 3 of these members are former HBCU athletes. This sucks, though, because I honestly, in the long run, is it former or current? I don't know if that really matters, to be honest, in the long run. Or really just generic. Just generally, I don't know if that is super important. But what I will say is Caleb Snowden from UAPB was so close as a current HBCU athlete. He was so close. I mean, literally on the brink. You could see it. Any cliche for close, it applies here. For him to not make it, now that was a tough blow. That one was a tough one, because you're looking at an athlete who had a really good outdoor season. An athlete who, no matter where he was going, he was consistently winning. Got up to the national level, got bronze. He went to the Olympic trials and got second place. He jumped to 227, which was his personal best, not only for the season, but of his career. So you're looking at an athlete who, in my opinion, did everything that he needed to do. But I am not the one who decides who goes to the Olympics. And it's not just a do you feel like it or not. What it is you have to check off a certain criteria. Two criteria in particular make up whether or not you're going to get invited. Do you reach the Olympic standard, which is a 233, which obviously we see that he didn't. At no point did he jump a 233. He jumped a 227 twice, once of which was at the Olympic trials, and he got second place. And then the other part is your world ranking. So it's 50-50 on the Olympic standard and then also your world rankings. He finished second at the Olympic trials, man. And this is the tough one because I really want to say forget all of that other stuff. The man finished second at the U.S. Olympic trials, put him on the U.S. team as a high jumper. But nothing that I've seen, and it's a decision I thought was supposed to be made on Tuesday the 2nd. So unless I had a little bit of confusion on that, I haven't seen anything. No one's talking about whether he made it or not. That makes me think he didn't make it because if he did, I'm sure people will be talking about it. I look up who's on the U.S. Olympic team. There's only 2 high jumpers. He's not one of them. This is a tough one. This is a tough one because he was so freaking close, but that's okay. If Snowden would have made it, he would have been the only active HBCU player, even though I think he even though I think he graduated. But he wasn't. So he's not. And that's just what it is. That being said, let's focus on the 3 HBCU athletes who are here, none of which are on the American team. Instead, let's start off with Chidi Okezie because he is a former Hampton runner who is running for Nigeria, and he'll be going to his second Olympics. He was there in Tokyo. He ran the mixed relay that year, but this time he's booked and busy. He didn't get rid of the mixed relay. The mixed relay is something he's still doing in addition to the 4x4 and the 400 individuals, right? This is somebody who graduated from Hampton in 2015. I actually don't think that any of these players any of these athletes, are recent. I think they're all, man. I think the last person, Sade McCreef Tardell, I think she might have been the youngest. But anyway, you're looking at Okezie, and he graduated in 2015. He's been running for a while. He actually ran for the USA in the juniors, but then I guess once he hit 18 or whatever, he started running for Nigeria. Because you see in 2012, he was running for the 4x4 in America, the juniors. Then you look at once he goes to 2018, he's at the African Championships. Or it was the Nigerian Championships. I think it was the African Championships. But no, it was probably Nigeria. Oh, no, it was African. There we go. Yeah, y'all hear the thought process. It be going, okay? Because I'll be trying to remember everything, including these times. But yeah, so he went to Tokyo, ran the mixed relay. He's going to be doing that same thing this year, in addition to the 4x4 for just the men's, and then also the 400 individuals. You got Danielle Williams, who will be representing Jamaica in the 100-meter hurdles, and she's definitely one of the ones to watch because she's currently 5th in the world, not in the nation. She's 5th in the world, and she's also the reigning defending 100-meter champion. I should have did that like Paul Heyman, introducing your reigning, defending 100-meter hurdle women's champion of the world, Danielle Williams. Okay. I think that was all right. My heart wasn't in it though, but I think that was all right. That was decent. This would be her first Olympic team. And she's been running professionally for a while. She has 2 world championships in this event under her belt, but she's competing with somebody heavy in her own country, right? There's a fellow Jamaican who just ran the 100-meter hurdles national champion, or national record, excuse me. I'm fumbling over my words right now. But so she just set the Jamaican record for the best 100-meter hurdle time of all time. So Williams definitely has a little bit of competition, but she got to be one of the ones you got to look at for being one of the favorites, if not the favorite. She's a Johnson C. Smith alum. She ran with them back in the day. Now, lastly, you have Sade McCreef Tardell, and you're looking at her running for Canada and their 4x1 team. She has the ability to accomplish something special. And what special thing she's looking for is being the first, or being a part of the first Canadian 4x1 women's team to medal since 1984. You're looking at a 40-year drought. They missed the finals last year, but they haven't medaled since 84. So that's what we're looking at them to finish. And they finished second in their heat this year to qualify with a 42.98. So this is going to be a really fun Olympics. And I'm looking at Sade, I'm looking at Danielle, and I'm looking at Chidi to be able to be men and women who are coming on and in representing well for Hampton, Bethune Cookman for Sade, and then also Johnson C. Smith for Danielle Williams. Now, as you push forward, I want to briefly wrap up by looking at Norfolk State's Hall of Fame class for 2024, because this is one of the better ones that you're going to see this year. And I don't really need to look at anyone else to make that claim. Today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. And Gametime is the best place for all of your last minute ticket deals. Maybe you're in a city with MLB right now. That's cool. Go ahead and get you some tickets to the ballpark, right? I just came back from Globe Life, a couple of weeks ago. Beautiful stadium. I was just in there for the HBCU Swingman Classic event a couple of days ago. Beautiful stadium. Maybe I want to go ahead and score me a couple of Rangers tickets. I would go to Gametime so I can go ahead and get the best ticket prices at the last minute if I want to. Sometimes you even see Gametime ticket sales available an hour after the game kicks off, tips off, the first pitch, whatever you want to call it. Maybe you're lucky enough to be in a city with the WNBA. Go ahead and get yourself some Dallas Wings tickets, some Chicago Sky tickets, some Las Vegas Aces tickets. You do all of those things, and you will make sure that you want to do it on Gametime. Make sure you download an app or download the Gametime app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONCollege to get $20 off your first purchase. As we're wrapping up today's episode of Locked on HBCU, I appreciate you for making this your first listen of the day every day, making it all the way to segment 3. And I thank you 2 times for that. Now, I want to look at the Norfolk State Hall of Fame class very briefly. We're not going to take too much time with it, but this is a class of firsts. Not the first ever Hall of Fame class for them. This isn't that. Norfolk State isn't new to this, but instead, this is a bunch of people in an entity as far as a basketball team that has first attached to them. And let me explain why, because I think the fact that you have so many people who are either in first place or have achieved something first, or I think that makes this a great class. You have good Hall of Fame classes and you have great ones. This one feels like a great one, and I'm only going to highlight 3 entities. Number 1, the headliner, the 2012 Norfolk State men's basketball team, and that was the team that went into the NCAA tournament as a 15 seed and knocked off Missouri, a number 2 seed. At that time, that had only been done 4 previous times. They were the 5th 15 seed to ever knock off a number 2 in the NCAA tournament. Not only was it the first time that they had done that, it was the first ever NCAA Big Dance tournament. And not only was it that, you also had the first ever MEAC tournament title, right? Like these are great moments. These are first after first after first. This is your first this. Oh, before that, you had your first this. Before that, you had the first this, right? So I'm assuming if this is their first title, this is probably their first time in the tournament. This is probably the first time in the D1 NCAA tournament, in the Big Dance. So you're looking at your first time you get it, you achieve something that is historic with one of, if not the biggest, HBCU men's basketball victory of recent memory. And it's definitely on the short list of the best ones of all time. So, I ain't no historian, and I ain't lived through all of that. So I ain't gonna say it's the best of all time, but in recent memory, this is one of the biggest, if not the biggest. Now, let's keep pushing. You have Nat Warren, who was the first tennis coach. Matter of fact, he even has the tennis center at Norfolk State named after him now. He's been a coach of the year. He was able to take them from D2 to D1. Those type of things are not easy. They sound simple when you achieve them, but a lot of times there's turnover. If not that next year, or not the year that they do it, maybe the next year or the year after that. You see oftentimes a coach, when they change conferences, you'll see a coach being replaced if they're not extremely successful. So I think the fact that he was able to take them from the 90s to the 2009, like the late 2000s, this is a testament of how steady that Nat Warren had Norfolk State tennis. Then you look at 2 other players, because he was a coach. Now you have not the first to do something, but a bunch of players who ended their career first. Let's start off with Charlotte Armstead. Charlotte Armstead, volleyball player. Obviously, she was here for 4 years when you start hearing all the things that she led the team in. She was first all time in kills, solo blocks, total blocks, points, sets played, excuse me. But like you can assume she was a 4-year player, and she was somebody who was a constant for Norfolk State volleyball. And then you also have Michael DeLoach, and he was the leading scorer. He was the leading scorer in school history. Averaged 21 points as a senior, averaged 21 points as a junior, dropped 30 something on North Carolina A&T head. That was his highest at a time, or of his career, excuse me. These are two players who were first in school history. They ranked the lead in points, lead in blocks, lead in kills, all of those things. And then you also look at two entities, because you got to look at the basketball team as a group, not just a individual, but they are an entity who had the first 15 seed over a number 2 seed in Norfolk State history. You're looking at Nat Warren, who was the first tennis coach and really a pillar for that community and for that team for nearly 20 years. This is a guy who definitely deserved everything that he got, including the tennis center to be named after him. So I appreciate you for making this your first listen of the day every day. These ladies and gentlemen will be inducted in September, I believe. I think it's September 6th to be specific. So I appreciate you. If I had a Hall of Fame, I would induct you as well, I promise. But unfortunately, I don't. So you'll just have to keep coming back until I finally get one for you. So maybe on Monday, I'll have something more appropriate for someone of your caliber. So in the meantime, in between time, until the next time that we hear each other, family, take care, stay blessed. Peace.